Hi everybody. So in our continuing quest to understand microaggressions and to get a better sense not only of what they are, but why they exist in the first place, it helps us to understand the connection between fact, inference, and judgments. These things are all interconnected and all work towards creating biases, creating internal feelings or interpretations of the events around us. Let's look at a picture here. You see what I'm talking about. Here we have a picture, right? Take a look at this picture and jot down on a piece of paper, what do you think is happening down here off screen? We don't know, right? We only have this frame of reference to look at. But something must be going on down here. What do you think it is? Write it down. I would go out and bet money on this, and I don't bet money on anything, but I would bet money that almost every single one of you wrote this. Santa's on fire. And you might not be wrong. I don't know. We're never going to know what's actually happening. But this educated guess, this interpretation seems logical. Well, let's see what's happening. So we have fact, inference, and judgment. So facts are all of the things that you can see. Right? Facts are things that you can verify. An inference is a little bit more complicated. An inference is a conclusion about the unknown made on the known. So everybody out there who said Santa Claus is on fire made an inference, made that conclusion about the unknown based on what you did see, based on the facts that were present in that picture. Now, when we infer, we arrive at a conclusion by reasoning from the facts or evidence to reach that conclusion. So we saw all of these different facts and all of them together paint the picture that Santa Claus was on fire. We'll look at that in a second. And then the reasoning that we use is influenced by our worldview. And this is the most important part of understanding implicit biases and understanding the creation of microaggressions. Our worldviews are informed by the conditions of existence that we consider normal. So normal is not the same for me, for you. Definitely not the same for people who live in California, Northern California in the Bay Area, or someone who might live in Bangladesh, or someone who might live in the middle of Africa, in the Congo or something, or someone who might live in a remote jungle in Brazil, right? What we consider normal is very different depending on how we've been conditioned or raised to understand the world around us. So let's go back to our picture here. So we go back to this picture and let's see the facts. Let's break down how we knew that Santa Claus was on fire. So the first thing we see are these little people with pointy hats, pointy ears, kind of funny clothes, right? So these, we're going to call them elves. Would somebody in the Congo see an elf when they looked at this? I don't know. I can't speak for somebody in the Congo, but I would go out on a limb and say that probably not. Chimney. So look at this idea of a chimney. Now, again, would somebody on an island or in the middle of Brazil necessarily understand what a chimney was made out of bricks? Not likely. Their worldview probably doesn't allow for this understanding. Same thing when it comes to snow. If you've never seen snow, how can you know what snow is? Yet our worldviews have informed our perception and our definitions of those perceptions. So because we've spent countless hours watching TV and reading stories and reading books and dealing just with the proliferation of Christmas within the Western society, we have a great idea that in the wintertime, with these little elf guys, there's going to be Santa Claus, especially in a chimney, because all of those cartoons tell us that Santa Claus goes down the chimney. Okay, so that's where we get the idea that Santa Claus is here. And try rolling around on the ground. Roll on the ground. If you went to elementary school in America, you went through stop, drop, and roll drills a lot. If somebody's on fire, what do? You stop, drop, and roll. It was programmed into our minds. So when we see roll around on the ground, roll on the ground, in conjunction with this smoke coming out of the chimney, and since we know that chimneys are where fires are, it's not a tough connection to make that Santa Claus is on fire. Okay, so all of the conditions of our worldview have led us to make this inference. Now, we could easily throw and poke holes in this. To us, it's very logical. But say somebody is from Australia, right? In Australia, they still have Christmas, but it's not in the wintertime. So would a young Australian see these bundled up elves in the snow and automatically assume it was Christmas? Maybe not. Because in Australia, Christmas comes in the middle of summer. Who's going to be bundled up like this in the middle of summer? Santa Claus is often depicted in Bermuda shorts. So our worldview has a lot to say about how we perceive the world around us and the environment around us. Right? And we see that Santa is on fire. Now, we have evidence of these inferences all around us. So we take a look here, and here I just have a picture of the Big Dipper going to the North Star, and I have a picture of the Little Dipper at the same time. Right? Chances are you've seen the Big Dipper and the Little Dipper, pointed out to you, science camp, studied it possibly in grade school. How many of you knew that the Big Dipper and the Little Dipper were bears? I didn't know until somebody told me. I wouldn't just look at these constellations and assume that they were bears. My worldview doesn't, I've never actually seen a bear in the wild. My worldview would not allow for me to see this as a bear. But whoever created this constellation, their worldview saw it as a bear, and we've just been living with it ever since. In different cultures, this could be a very different inference based on the society and the cultural conditions of that culture. Right? Here's something we all know. Well, maybe we don't. So if immediately you said, it's Pikachu! Well, what I would have to ask is, how do you know? There's just a bunch of dots. There's no outlines. But many of you have grown up with Pokemon, and immediately you see his little cherry red cheeks and big smile and his eyes and, you know, weird little hand or whatever, and you automatically know that you're looking at Pikachu when you see this. Now again, this is dictated entirely by your worldview and your experience of Pokemon. If somebody has never ever heard of Pokemon before in their life, would they see Pikachu here? No, it would be impossible. Even if they connected all of these dots, and I tried to use the drawing tool to connect these dots, and it was an epic failure, so I deleted that part of the video. So I'm not even going to try to do it this time. But if we were to connect all of these dots, you'd see your familiar Pikachu. But somebody, maybe your grandparents or great-grandparents who had never heard of this, what do they see? It's definitely not a Pokemon character named Pikachu. It's hard to say. Their worldview will fill in the blanks and tell us. Maybe they see some kind of crazy rabbit, right? Maybe they see some kind of a bear, right? Who knows? They will make a very different inference than you made because their worldview is very different. They have been informed in a very different way. And so that's really the power behind inferences and judgments, is that we can look at the same set of facts and based on our background come to completely different but equally valid conclusions. And that's what makes microaggressions and implicit biases and things like racism and classism and sexism so difficult to deal with, is because both sides, in many ways, feel that they are right and logical. It's understanding that we are wired in completely different ways and therefore perceive of the same events in completely different ways that leads to a whole host of conflicts in our world. Let me give you some more examples. Let's play a game. Which would you rather? So, gotta go shop, go get dinner. And so, which would you rather shop? Where would you rather shop for that dinner? Let's take a look. Different people are going to have different perceptions. If we look at this in more detail, generally, I have a little shout out where we talk about what we're seeing here in the classroom, but since this is online, it's a little hard to do that. But typical responses often include, is that raw meat? And yes, that's raw meat. Absolutely. Did she wash her hands? I don't know. There is water back there, so maybe. I wasn't there, so that's part of the unknown. Is this sanitary? My Western mind looks at this and goes, it's kind of dirty. I don't know how I feel about this. I don't know if it's sanitary. Right? A lot of students say it looks like something from a third world country. A lot of students sitting out there have family, friends, relatives, or maybe even themselves who have visited or who used to live in a third world country and have seen things like this all over the place. So maybe this is actually comfortable to a lot of people. A lot of people then say, ew, I would never buy anything from there. I'm a vegetarian now. Right? And so based on a Western worldview, this particular market might be scary to us. Whereas when we look at this market, we see a lot of different things here. Things that students often remark on are the colors. It's so very colorful. Everything's colorful. It's well lit. All the vegetables look fresh, right? Everything looks super fresh here. A lot of people say it looks like Whole Foods, and it's very organized, and I always ask, are these people European? And we'll remark that this looks very, very healthy. And maybe they're right? Maybe they are. But let's go back a little bit to our two pictures, side by side, in the which would you rather. So, and we're talking about ideas of freshness here to talk about it, looking at the vegetables, they all appear to be very, very fresh. I, for one, used to have a job in the vegetable industry before I went back to college. So right out of high school, I worked in the vegetable industry. And I can tell you right now, none of these fruits and vegetables are what we might call fresh. These were all picked up to a week ago, maybe even a little bit longer, right? And so how fresh are they? Hard to say. You have to take the word of the person from the market. Very likely these were grown elsewhere and shipped in, and that takes time. Whereas over here, this was probably cut an hour ago, minutes ago, right? And so this might actually be much fresher than any kind of meat or vegetable that you could ever get in this particular store. In terms of sanitary, do we really know? Does bright colors and organization mean that something is sanitary? No. How many recalls have you heard about over your entire lifetime? Don't eat the lettuce, it's poison. Don't eat the spinach, it's poison. Don't, right? Constantly we're told, oh, the beef has E. coli now. All of those fruits and vegetables that were recalled were sold in stores that look like this. So all I'm really trying to get across to us at this point in time is to be aware. Really be aware. We've been conditioned to believe and to trust in certain markets being more fresh or healthy than other markets. However, there's more to it than meets the eye. And we're going to see that in the next video when we talk about Jack. So stay tuned and pop right back in and we'll do a little activity with Jack. Talk to you in a second.